Do something powerful. The moment you stop reacting to everything is the moment you step into your real strength. This isn't about being cold, emotionless, or distant. It's about taking your power back from everything and everyone that used to control it. Today, I want to show you what detachment really means and how learning to emotionally disconnect doesn't make you less human. It makes you more in control, more alive, and more at peace than ever before. This is where freedom begins. Detachment isn't about apathy. It's about clarity. People often misunderstand detachment, thinking it means you stop caring, stop loving, or stop feeling. But the truth is, detachment is not the absence of emotion. It's the mastery of it. It's the decision to stop letting emotions blur your vision or distort your reality. When you're detached, you don't stop feeling, you start seeing, you begin to look at life without the constant fog of fear, anxiety, desperation, or need. You stop making decisions from a place of panic or emotional chaos, and instead begin to respond from a place of strength, peace, and inner stability. You know what happens when you're emotionally attached to everything? You start becoming reactive. Everything gets to you. Every comment, every disappointment, every minor letdown hits you like a wave, knocking you off balance. That's not strength. That's vulnerability in the wrong way. True vulnerability is brave. But being emotion tangled in everything, that's a recipe for burnout. That's when you start losing your sense of self, because you're constantly merging with the chaos around you. Detachment steps in like a breath of fresh air. It gives you space to pause, reflect, and choose rather than react. Clarity doesn't come when you're drowning in your own thoughts and feelings. It comes when you create just enough distance between yourself and the emotion to observe it, to ask yourself, is this feeling true? Is it helpful? Is it even mine? Most of us are walking around carrying the weight of other people's expectations, opinions, judgments, projections, and we don't even realize it. Detachment helps you drop what isn't yours. It helps you separate your identity from your reaction, and it teaches you to say, this may be happening around me, but it doesn't have to happen to me. It's easy to get emotionally wrapped up in things that seem important in the moment. The argument with a friend, the delay in your plans, the silence from someone you care about, but ask yourself, does this situation deserve to take over your entire day, your energy, your peace? Most of the time, the answer is no. But when you're emotionally attached, every little ripple feels like a tidal wave. Detachment teaches you to see the ripple for what it is. Temporary disturbance, not a permanent storm. You start choosing your battles. You stop trying to win arguments that don't matter. You stop needing to be right all the time. You stop handing over your energy to people in situations that haven't earned it. That's clarity, and it feels like freedom, because it is, some people think that being emotionally invested is a form of loyalty, but there's a fine line between loyalty and self-abandonment. You can support someone without losing your center. You can love someone deeply and still detach from their chaos. You can be present in your relationships without absorbing every ounce of pain, drama, or conflict that comes with them. Detachment allows you to stay grounded in yourself. No matter how loud the world gets, when you live with clarity, you begin to see how much of your suffering was optional, how much of it came from holding too tightly to things, people, and outcomes that were never in your control to begin with. Detachment doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in to the truth that not everything is yours to fix, not every emotion is yours to carry, and not every situation is meant to be figured out right now. Imagine living a life where your peace is not up for negotiation. Your worth is not tied to someone else's approval, where your emotions are acknowledged but not allowed to drive your every move. That's what detachment offers. It gives you back your authority. It helps you get out of survival mode and into a space where you can breathe, think, and make empowered decisions. Clarity doesn't make you cold. It makes you wise. It makes you compassionate without being consumed. It lets you love people without trying to save them. It lets you work hard without being defined by your results. It allows you to show up fully and still know when to step back. That's what makes detachment so powerful. It's not the end of connection. It's the beginning of authentic connection, starting with the one you have with yourself. So the next time someone tells you detachment is cold, emotionless, smile and let them think what they want. Because deep down, you'll know the truth. You're not running from your emotions, you're leading them. You're not avoiding life. You're finally living it on your terms. You've got clarity now. And that changes everything. When you learn to detach emotionally, you unlock one of the most overlooked superpowers, the ability to think clearly. That's what emotional detachment really gives you: space, mental space, emotional space, and most importantly, logical space. When you're consumed by emotions, especially in the middle of conflict, heartbreak, disappointment, or stress, logic takes a back seat. You become reactive instead of responsive. You jump to conclusions. You say things you don't mean. You make decisions from a place of fear, anger, or insecurity. And later, when the emotion settles, you look back and wonder what just happened. That's the trap of living emotionally entangled in everything. You lose your ability to see clearly. But emotional detachment is different. It's not avoidance. It's not pretending things don't hurt. It's not being cold. It's choosing to pause. It's creating a buffer between what's happening around you and how you choose to respond. That pause is where logic lives. That pause is where wisdom waits. That pause is where maturity grows. Most people are constantly reacting to their environment. If someone criticizes them, they instantly feel defensive. If someone leaves them unread, they spiral. If something doesn't go as planned, their whole day is ruined. But when you practice detachment, you step outside the noise. You stop becoming a slave to every emotion. You realize that just because you feel something doesn't mean it's true, and it definitely doesn't mean you need to act on it. Let's be real, emotions are powerful, but they're also temporary. They come and go like waves. When you learn to observe them instead of being swept away by them, you gain control over your choices. You stop letting one moment of anger destroy a relationship. You stop letting one comment ruin your confidence. You stop letting disappointment derail your goals. You start to separate what's real from what's emotional static. Emotional detachment also helps you understand people better when you're not personally invested in proving a point, winning an argument, or being liked. You listen better. You see things more objectively. You start to recognize patterns in others, not just words. You can sit in a conversation and hear the pain behind someone's anger, the insecurity behind someone's arrogance, or the fear behind their control. That's what detachment does. It makes you aware. It makes you emotionally intelligent. This kind of clarity helps you make better decisions. You stop chasing people who are emotionally unavailable. You stop staying in situations that drain you. You stop seeking validation in all the wrong places. As you begin to align with logic, boundaries, and long-term peace rather than short-term emotional highs. That's a massive shift in your power, and it all starts with choosing not to react from emotion, but to respond from wisdom. When you live detached, people might misunderstand you. They might think you're distant or aloof, but what they don't see is the strength it takes to stay calm when everything's pushing you to explode. They don't understand the discipline it takes to walk away from chaos, to say no without guilt, or to not chase closure. That's okay. You don't need to explain your peace. You just need to protect it. And let's not forget, your environment plays a huge role in how often you're emotionally triggered. If you surround yourself with drama, gossip, and emotional instability, it's much harder to stay detached. But when you start creating distance from toxic spaces and people, your mind clears up. You realize how much of your stress was never yours to carry. Detachment gives you back the energy that was being sucked out by things you couldn't control anyway. One of the most practical ways to build emotional detachment is to ask yourself in moments of intensity, is this worth my peace? That one question can change your life. Is the argument worth my peace? Is proving my point worth my energy? Is being right more important than being calm? More often than not, the answer is no. And when you start answering that way consistently, you'll notice something incredible. Your life gets quieter, but not in a boring way, in a powerful way. The kind of quiet where you're no longer being pulled in 20 emotional directions at once. The kind of quiet where your thoughts are clearer, your actions are aligned, your decisions are smarter. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop letting feelings run your life. You can still feel everything deeply and choose not to act from that place. That's the ultimate balance. That's emotional maturity, and that's the clarity most people spend their whole lives chasing. So next time your emotions start taking over, stop, breathe, step back, ask yourself what's true, ask yourself what matters long term, ask yourself if reacting right now serves your peace or destroys it. That's how you create space for logic. That's how you detach. And that's how you take your power back, one silent, intentional decision at a time. You can care deeply and still let go. This is one of the hardest things to understand when you start the journey of emotional detachment. We've been raised to believe that love means attachment, that care means holding on tightly, that connection is measured by how entangled we are in someone else's emotions, decisions, or presence. But that's not strength. That's dependence disguised as devotion. Real strength, the kind that gives you peace, is when you can love someone with your whole heart and still be okay if they walk away. It's when you can give your energy fully to something and still know how to release it. When it no longer serves your growth, letting go doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough to recognize the difference between what nourishes your soul and what drains it. So many people stay in relationships, friendships, jobs, or mindsets that slowly deteriorate their mental well-being simply because they think caring means staying. They confuse emotional investment with emotional captivity. But here's the truth. The deepest love you can show for others and for yourself is knowing when to step back, knowing when something or someone is taking more from you than you're meant to give. Emotional detachment allows you to draw that boundary. It lets you be present without becoming consumed. It lets you support someone without sacrificing your own peace. It allows you to be in relationships where you're not constantly trying to fix, save, or change someone who doesn't want to grow you. Start realizing that you can offer love without losing yourself. You can be empathetic and still have limits. You can be loyal and still have non-negotiables. A lot of people think that if you detach, you're cold, that you've shut down, that you don't care. That couldn't be further from the truth. Detachment is often the result of deep care, but it's care with clarity. It's care with consciousness. It's care that knows when it's time to release control and trust. The process, letting go while still loving, is a superpower. It means you're no longer driven by fear. You're no longer chasing people or outcomes to feel enough. You're no longer anchored by the need to be needed. You stop needing closure from people who refuse to be honest with themselves. You stop waiting on an apology to move on. You stop putting your emotional safety in the hands of people who have never shown you they can handle it. When you detach, you choose inner peace over external chaos. You stop playing emotional tug of war with people who thrive on conflict. You stop making excuses for patterns that don't change. You begin to understand that your love can be full of grace and still have a gate. That love can be given freely, but not at the cost of your own foundation. And here's what's beautiful: when you detach from what's toxic, unclear, inconsistent, or just plain draining you, make space for what's healthy, aligned, and life-giving you. Stop settling for half-hearted energy. You start attracting people and experiences that respect your space and meet you with the same level of intentionality. You're showing up differently. You become less reactive, more grounded. You stop proving yourself. You stop chasing approval. You become someone who can be calm in chaos, someone who listens more than they explain, someone who walks away with quiet confidence rather than loud pain. Letting go doesn't mean you stop loving it. It means you love yourself enough to walk in a direction where peace lives. You learn that emotional freedom isn't detachment from people. It's detachment from the illusion that you need to control them, fix them, or be everything for them. It's realizing you were never meant to carry their healing. You are responsible for your emotions, your energy, your boundaries, and the moment you accept that fully, you're free. Free to give love without fear, free to leave without guilt, free to care deeply without clinging tightly, because you finally understand that real connection doesn't require possession. It requires presence. And that's what detachment teaches you: to be fully present in your life without being held hostage by anything in it. So yes, you can care deeply and still let go. In fact, sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to do exactly that. When everything gets a reaction from you, everything owns a piece of you, every look, every comment, every slight, every mistake. If you're constantly reacting, you're constantly being pulled, and that's exhausting. That's how you lose yourself without even realizing it. The truth is, reactive energy drains your power because it makes you a servant to everything outside of you. You're not in charge anymore. Your emotions are the situation as the person is, and that's a dangerous place to live. Think about how often your day gets hijacked by something small. Person says something off and you carry it in your chest for hours. One rude message and your mood shifts entirely. One piece of unexpected news and you spiral. That's what happens when you haven't built the muscle of detachment. You let everything stick. You give meaning to things that don't deserve it. You respond to things that never even needed your attention. It's not because you're weak. It's because you haven't yet realized how valuable your energy is. Your peace is not cheap. Your presence is not disposable. And yet when you react to everything, you're spending your energy like it's unlimited, like you've got time and mental space to waste. But you don't. You've got goals. You've got healing to do. You've got growth to chase. You've got a version of you you're trying to become, and that version doesn't flinch every time something external tries to shake them. That version doesn't argue back and defend themselves to people committed to misunderstanding them. That version doesn't explain their worth to someone who hasn't even earned their access. Reactive energy is impulsive. It's messy. It's often fueled by ego, fear, or past wounds. And it usually ends up taking you further away from who you actually want to be. Because you react without thinking, you give up the power of choice. You stop creating your life with intention and you start living in defense mode. Always putting out fires, always responding to someone else's behavior, always feeling like you're behind on edge or exhausted. So what does power look like? It looks like pause. It looks like stepping back before you say something. You don't mean it looks like silence when you know someone's trying to provoke you. It looks like choosing not to internalize someone else's chaos. It looks like understanding that not everything deserves your attention. Few things are actually emergencies. Power is quiet. Power is intentional. Power is knowing that just because you feel something doesn't mean you need to act on it. Emotional maturity is knowing how to sit with discomfort without needing to project it. It's being able to feel a wave of anger or sadness and choosing to observe it instead of act it out. And that's where detachment comes in. Detach is that space between the trigger and your response. It's the pause that keeps you in control. It's that invisible shield that keeps your center intact, no matter how loud the world gets. You might worry that if you don't react, you're letting people walk all over you, that you're being passive. But that's a misunderstanding. Not reacting isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's knowing when a battle isn't worth your presence. It's knowing that someone's bad behavior is a reflection of them, not you. It's knowing that your energy is sacred and you don't owe it to just anyone. The moment you stop being reactive, you reclaim your freedom. You start making decisions from clarity instead. It's chaos. You begin to notice what actually matters and what's just noise. You stop getting pulled into conversations, arguments, and dynamics that are beneath your evolution. You become steady, and in that steadiness, your confidence grows because now you're moving with purpose. Now you're choosing how to spend your energy instead of leaking it everywhere. Now you're responding, not reacting. There's a depth. You were never meant to be ruled by your emotions. You were meant to feel them, honor them, and then decide. But you can't decide when you're constantly triggered. You can't choose wisely when you're constantly on the edge of reaction. That's why detachment isn't about ignoring your feelings. It's about creating space between the feeling and the action. It's about choosing response over reaction, stillness over chaos, strength over control. Reactive energy is like trying to put out a fire. By throwing gasoline on it, you think you're doing something productive, but you're just feeding the flames. Detachment is water. It cools things down. It allows you to breathe, to think, to lead yourself, and that's what you're here to do. Lead yourself, not be led by every mood, moment, every minor inconvenience. You're not here to be emotionally tossed around by life. You're here to move through it, grounded, centered, and aligned. That starts by letting go of the need to react, by recognizing the difference between what deserves your energy and what just wants your attention, choosing every day to protect your peace over proving your point. You don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to chase validation or defend your worth or match anyone's chaos. Let people be who they are, let situations unfold, and choose to stay calm. That's your real power. You are not your thoughts or your feelings. That statement might sound strange at first, maybe even a little unsettling. But the moment you truly grasp it, everything begins to shift. Because if you're not your thoughts, if you're not your feelings, then who are you? You're the observer, you're the awareness behind the noise. And once you learn to step back and observe rather than get lost in the storm of your emotions, you unlock a new kind of strength. The kind of strength that can't be shaken by what's happening around you. Most people go through life fully identified with their emotional state. They say things like, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm anxious, as if these emotions are permanent labels they have to wear, but they're not. They're just passing clouds in the sky of your mind. They move in, they hang around, and they move on. If you let them, the problem is we often don't let them pass. We grab onto them. We fuel them with thoughts, stories, and what ifs, and before we know it, a simple emotion becomes an identity. That's where suffering begins, not in the emotion itself, but in the attachment to it. When you believe your fear is who you are, when you think your sadness defines your future, when you let your anger make decisions for you, that's when emotions take control of your life. That's when you lose your power. But here's what changes everything: awareness. The ability to step back and watch your thoughts instead of being consumed by them, to sit with your feelings without letting them run the show. You start to see them for what they are: temporary experiences, not truths. Let's say someone says something that hurts you, your mind floods with thoughts. Why would they say that? What's wrong with me? I'm always treated this way. That inner voice starts spinning a narrative, layering emotion on top of emotion. But if you step back, if you observe instead of identify, you might notice something different. You might notice that your heart is racing, your face feels hot, Your breath is shallow and that's it. That's all that's happening. It's your body reacting. You're still you and you're still in control. This doesn't mean you ignore your emotions. It means you stop becoming them. You give yourself space to feel without letting the feeling dictate your next move. When you do that, you become grounded, solid, centered. You start responding instead of reacting. Thoughts are just thoughts. Feelings are just feelings. They're not facts. They're not prophecies. They don't define who you are unless you give them that power. And once you realize you don't have to believe every thought you think, you don't have to act on every feeling you feel. You get your power back. Let's talk about anxiety. That's a perfect example. Anxiety tells you something bad is coming. It floods your mind with scenarios that haven't happened and most likely never will. If you believe those thoughts without question, your body reacts as if the danger is real. Your heart pounds, your muscles tense, your breathing shortens, and suddenly you're living in a future that doesn't exist. But when you create distance from the anxiety, when you say, oh, I'm noticing anxiety right now. Instead of I am anxious, you take the first step toward detachment. You separate your identity from the emotion. And in that space, you find clarity. The same applies to sadness, to anger, to shame. These emotions are visitors. Them come. Let matters more than you think. This practice, this emotional detachment isn't about becoming numb. It's about becoming wise. It's not about suppressing emotions. It's about understanding that you are bigger than your emotions. You are the sky, not the storm. You are the container, not the contents. And when you can observe your emotional state without merging with it, you gain control over how you think, how you act, how you live. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, pause, breathe, step back, watch what's happening inside without judgment. Ask yourself, what am I noticing right now? Not what's wrong with me, but what's rising up inside me, and how can I meet it with awareness instead of resistance? That's detachment, that's power, and it's available to you at any moment. You are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings, you are the calm center that sees it all, holds it all, and chooses wisely what to do next. That's where freedom begins. That's where strength lives, and that's the person you becoming one conscious breath at a time. When you learn the art of detachment, something incredible begins to unfold. You become resilient in ways you never imagined. You stop getting pulled in every direction by your emotions. You stop being shaken by every unexpected situation. And more importantly, you start standing firm when life tries to knock you down. See, most people walk through life, emotionally raw. Every little thing scratches the surface. One rude comment ruins their day. One disappointment sends them spiraling. One unanswered text triggers anxiety. Why? Because they're too attached, too involved, too invested in things outside of their control. Resilience doesn't come from being tougher than everyone else. It doesn't come from pretending not to care. Real resilience is built when you develop enough emotional space between you and the world around you, when you can see things clearly without letting them consume you. Imagine going through a tough conversation, but instead of falling apart, you observe, you listen, you understand your feelings, but you don't let them hijack you. You pause before reacting. That's detachment. That's control. That's strength. You don't let the outside world determine your internal peace. And that's where resilience begins. You start realizing you don't have to attend every emotional argument. You're invited to. You don't have to fix every problem immediately. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone who misunderstands you. That space you create between action and reaction becomes your protection. And when life hits hard, you don't break, you bend, and you bounce back. Detachment gives you this mental buffer zone where you can reflect before you respond, and in that gap you gain perspective. You stop taking everything personally. You begin to understand that people's behavior is a reflection of them, not a measure of your worth. So you don't crumble when someone disappoints you. You don't chase after closure. You don't fall apart when plans don't work out. You adapt, you adjust. You move on. This is not emotional numbness. It's emotional maturity. It's the understanding that your power lies not in what happens to you, but in how you choose to respond. The world can be loud, people can be unpredictable, emotions can be overwhelming, but your response, that's yours, that's your domain. And that's where resilience lives. There's something incredibly freeing about knowing that you don't have to carry everything. You're allowed to let go of things that hurt you, allowed to protect you. Energy, you're allowed to walk away from what no longer serves you. Detachment teaches you that resilience isn't about holding on, it's about knowing when to release. Even in relationships, detachment helps you build resilience. You stop depending on someone else's approval for your happiness. You start showing up fully for yourself. You love without losing yourself, and when someone leaves you, don't shatter, you recover. You don't beg, you don't collapse, you rebuild, because your foundation isn't outside of you, it's within. When you embrace detachment, you stop reacting to temporary emotion, you stop making permanent decisions based on fleeting feelings. You learn to sit with discomfort without letting it define you, and that's where you grow. That's how you toughen your spirit. That's how you rise above resilience. Doesn't mean you never feel pain. It means you no longer stay stuck in it. You feel it, you face it, and you move through it, and the more you practice detachment, the faster you get back up. You stop needing everything to be perfect to feel okay. You stop relying on circumstances to give you peace. Become your own anchor. And that's a level of power. No one can take away. Every challenge you face becomes a chance to practice a rude comment, detach a failed plan, detach a painful goodbye. Detach, not by avoiding the feeling, but by refusing to be owned by it. You acknowledge the hurt, but you don't let it sink you. You learn, you grow. You build calluses in your heart, not walls. And those calluses, they remind you that you've survived before. And you'll survive again. So understand this: resilience isn't a gift you're born with. It's a skill you build every time you choose to pause, instead of react every time you observe, instead of absorb every time you let go. Instead of cling, you become stronger. Life still tests you, but it no longer controls you. That's the quiet power of emotional detachment, and it makes you unstoppable. Letting go isn't weakness, strength. That's something most people don't understand until life pushes them hard enough to see it in a world that praises control, attachment, and holding on. We rarely stop to ask whether what we're clinging to is actually serving us. But the truth is, real strength often looks like releasing the very thing you once thought you couldn't live without. Think about how much time and energy we waste trying to hold everything together. We hold on to people who've already let go of us. We obsess over outcomes we can't predict. We exhaust ourselves trying to manage how others see us, how they feel, what they do, and what they think. It's this constant effort to grasp control and fix everything around us. And you know what that creates? Burnout, emotional exhaustion, confusion, anxiety, and deep, quiet resentment toward ourselves for not being able to keep it all together. But when you finally learn to let go, not out of spite, not out of bitterness, but out of understanding, you begin to experience freedom. You realize that your peace is worth more than your pride. Your clarity is worth more than being right. Your mental health is worth more than anyone's approval. Letting go is strength, because it requires you to trust what's uncertain. It asks you to sit in the discomfort of not knowing how things will unfold and still move forward. That's not easy. It's hard to release control, especially when you've been wired to believe that control keeps you safe. But the paradox is that the tighter you grip, the more you suffer, and the more you release, the lighter you become. Letting go of someone doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you love yourself enough to no longer chase something that's hurting your soul. It means you've accepted that your growth and peace matter more than keeping a relationship alive. That's already outlived its purpose. It takes strength to walk away from the familiar, to stop justifying toxic behavior, to stop rewriting the same story, hoping for a different ending. That's not weakness, that's wisdom, that's courage in letting go of outcomes now. That's a real power move. We want certainty, we want to know what's coming, we want guarantees, but life doesn't give you that. It gives you moments, choices, chances, and when you fixate on the outcome, you miss the process, you miss the learning, you miss the part where you build resilience and character. Letting go of the outcome means doing your part, showing up fully, giving your best, and then stepping back. It's knowing that you can't force the result, but you can always control your effort, your attitude, and your response. The strongest people you know are not the ones who hold everything together perfectly. They're the ones who've lost, let go, failed, fallen, and still had the grace to move on. They're the ones who walked through heartbreak and didn't let it harden them, who've been rejected and still choose to believe in their worth, who've been misunderstood and instead of explaining themselves endlessly, chose to protect their peace. That kind of strength doesn't scream. It's quiet, it's grounded, it's earned. Letting go is strength because it means you've stopped fighting battles that were never yours. You've stopped overexerting yourself trying to change people who don't want to change. You've stopped betraying your own boundaries just to keep someone comfortable. You've stopped sacrificing your emotional well-being for temporary validation. Letting go says, I trust that what's meant for me won't need force. I trust that I don't have to beg, chase, or suffer to be worthy. Sometimes you let go of plans. Life interrupts, things fall apart. It's easy to panic when things don't go the way you envisioned, but in hindsight, so many wrong turns were actually redirecting you, something better. So many delays were actually protection. So many endings were necessary. Letting go of your rigid expectations. Make space for grace, for new beginnings, for better opportunities, and yes, it hurts sometimes. Detaching, releasing, saying goodbye, it all comes with a sting. But so does hold on too long. Pain is inevitable. Suffering, optional. You get to choose what pain is worth holding on to and what pain you're ready to release. Letting go doesn't make you a quitter. It makes you a believer in your own growth. It makes you someone who understands that not everything is worth holding on to just because it once mattered. It means you've evolved, you've expanded, you've learned that life moves, and so must you. So if you're holding on to something right now, a grudge, a relationship, a failure, a dream that no longer inspires you, ask yourself, is this giving me life or draining me of it? If it's taking more than it's giving, it's time to let go. And when you do, don't be afraid of the silence that follows. Don't fear the space it creates. That space is sacred. That's where healing happens. That's where strength is built. You weren't meant to carry everything. You weren't built to be emotionally enslaved by people's expectations or the past. You were meant to feel, grow, love, release, and evolve. Letting go is not the end. It's the beginning of something better, something lighter, something true. That's not weakness, that's power. When you emotionally detach from things that once controlled you, you begin to experience a kind of peace that can't be shaken. This peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce insults, but it's powerful, and the more you live in that peace, the more unstoppable you become. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you no longer allow what's outside of you to disturb what's inside you. You start choosing where your energy goes. You stop wasting time being emotionally tangled in things that are temporary, people that are inconsistent, and situations that are draining your life force. And in that moment of clarity, you realize that nothing has power over you unless you give it permission. That's where the transformation begins. The world around you will always be noisy. There will always be something demanding attention, something poking at your insecurities, someone testing your boundaries. But when you're detached, it doesn't reach you. The same way you're not numb, aware, you're not careless, you're calm, you're not heartless. Your intentional detachment is about reclaiming your emotional space. It's about building an inner sanctuary that external chaos can't enter. Most people live in reaction mode. They react to messages, to moods of others, to stress, to criticism, to rejection. But when you detach, you begin to pause. You no longer let your emotions dictate your choices. You gate your choices, and your emotions follow, not the other way around. Imagine how much energy you've spent worrying about what others think, replaying conversations over analyzing situations, holding on to grudges, chasing clarity from people who were never honest to begin with. Now imagine what your life would look like if you took all that energy back, if you stopped letting other people live rent-free in your mind, if you stopped needing closure from people who benefit from your confusion. Emotional detachment is the art of not internalizing everything. It's learning to say, this is their problem, not mine. It's understanding that someone else's behavior is a reflection of them, not a definition of you, and you will be tested. You'll be tempted to overreact. You'll be pulled toward drama. You'll feel the urge to explain yourself to people who aren't listening. That's okay, you're human, but the power is in the choice. You can feel the pull and still not move. You can feel the urge and still stay grounded. That's what strength looks like. Not loud, not aggressive, but steady. You can stand in a storm and still be calm because your peace isn't determined by the weather. It's built from within. There will be people who don't understand your detachment. They'll mistake it for arrogance, for coldness, for being distant. That's fine. Let them. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be free, and freedom comes with boundaries. It comes with silence. It comes with not needing to prove anything. You begin to realize that you don't owe anyone your constant presence. Your emotional labor or your peace of mind, you owe that to yourself. You'll find that the more you detach, the more clearly you see. You'll see who genuinely values you and who just needs your energy. You'll see what habits are serving you and which ones are sabotaging your growth. You'll become more intentional with your time, more selective with your attention, more protective of your spirit. Detachment doesn't make life less meaningful. It makes it more real. You stop living on autopilot. You stop chasing empty validation. You start showing up for yourself in ways that you used to expect from others. You learn to enjoy your own company. You learn to sit in silence without needing constant stimulation. You find peace in letting things be without needing to fix or force. You stop expecting perfection from others and from yourself. You allow room for things to unfold naturally without attaching your self-worth to the outcome. That's emotional maturity. That's growth, and it's the foundation of lasting confidence in a world addicted to reaction. Choosing detachment is a radical act of self-respect. It's you saying, I will no longer give the world the power to disturb my inner peace. And when you do that consistently, something shifts. You start waking up lighter. You start focusing better. Moving through life with clarity, with presence, and with strength. You no longer need to prove yourself. You don't need to win argument. You don't need to chase closure. You become your own anchor. That is the quiet, unshakable power of detachment. It's not about escaping the world. It's about not being ruled by it. It's about walking through life with your soul intact, your energy preserved, and your focus protected, because when you detach emotionally, you finally realize peace isn't something you find, it's something you choose every day, with every boundary you set, with every silence you hold, with every reaction you let pass without engagement. That's real power, and it's already within you.